What's going on, guys? This is Jimmy.
Hey guys, this is Rachel.
Thank you all so much for joining us. We are excited about today. We have a good show for you all. Sorry for the brief delay, but technical difficulties.
Will happen.
And so now, look, we just want to tell you guys, we want you all to come on in the living room with us today. Join in on this subject, comment, like, all those good things so we can have a great show today.
Yes, and we want you to rep your city. So as you come in, we want to know what city, or if you're out of the country, what country you're watching us from. Those of you who are watching through our guests today, through Marriage Inc., we welcome you also to come on in, tell us who you are and what city you represent. Today, we have a very special show, as my husband said. One of our 10 principles, which is the 7th principle today, is protect the trust in your marriage. Our show topic is I will never hurt you, said no person, right? Listen, let me tell you about our guests. Shannon and Shirley are the founders of Marriage Inc., and they have been married for 22 years and know what it's like to be tested on every level till death do us part. Their desire is to continue to follow God's calling on their lives, to help couples understand their divine purpose, to stay true to their vows, and not simply survive, but truly thrive. Put your hands together. Yes. For Shannon and Shirley.
Hey guys.
The power couple.
So what's going on, guys? How y'all doing?
Great.
How are you?
Good. Thank you all so much for joining us today. We really do appreciate you all. We know that you guys are super busy, but you all coming on in the living room with us today so we can talk about this thing called trust.
Absolutely.
Yeah, this thing called trust. We love to have a scripture to support the topic that we're talking about. And today our scripture is 1 John 4:18. It says, "There is no fear in love, but perfect love casteth out fear, because fear hath torment. He that feareth is not made perfect in love." And I firmly believe when a person is afraid, it's because somewhere along the line there is some trust missing. Because when we are truly, completely in love, and I mean where we openly just trust, we don't have any fear. We have no doubts. We're just wide open and ready to roll. But guys, we thank you all so much, and we're not going to keep you all longer than the hour we promised. So
we hope. Sometimes it gets
But
really good.
with these four,
Ain't no telling, right?
I knew that was gonna come in.
Ain't no telling how we roll.
But
it gets good to us.
So Rachel, I mean, let's just go ahead and get into it, and
let's just jump right in. Feet first.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Listen, we want to ask y'all. We're going to ask you a few questions, and I don't even have to tell you to be straight up and honest, because that's who you guys are. All right. So the first question we want to ask you is, how important is trust in a relationship and a marriage? How important is trust in a relationship and a marriage?
Well, I have definitely come to understand that trust really is the emotional oxygen for human relationship. When you think about, a baby being born, right? And the baby is developing in the womb, and it's in a safe place, a very secure place. It's protected. 9 times out of 10, it has not experienced any trauma. When that baby is born, one of the first things that happen is that baby is placed on its mother's chest. And it's not for some cutesy thing. It's because they want, number one, the bonding process to continue, right? And they want the baby to know that they can still be safe and secure. So before birth, we are placed in a situation where we are dependent upon someone, and what we are looking for is trust, right? And so, when I was younger, trust, it really was one-dimensional, but I've just come to understand that it's multi-dimensional, right? It encompasses safety and security. And so how important is it? It is everything in a relationship. And I mean, listen, we can deep dive into trust and literally be here for the next week talking about that thing, because there are different levels and dynamics to trust from the standpoint of, was your trust or mistrust, did it start early on? And so how is that playing out in your relationship? You know what I mean? Not just, you know, we have a situation here because of this situation, because of what I've done to you, you now are having trust issues with me. And so when we're moving along in our relationship, we need to examine what is the root of our trust, because sometimes it's actually not what you're doing may trigger something in me.
Right.
You know, so yes, very, very.
So Shannon, what's your take on that question? Because we do want both of you all to give your perspective on the questions that we ask.
Hey, Jimmy.
Yes, sir.
I don't have a perspective right now because I'm trying to work out some technical issues.
I love the honesty.
We want you guys going. I need to get us headphones because I'm using the built-in speaker and we got that feedback loop going. I hear us in your microphone.
Gotcha.
And so I'm trying to work that out. So I'm going to let Shirley continue because she's got a whole lot to say about it, clearly. And while I'm working on this audio issue.
No problem. I understand the technical side of things, brother. But yeah, so Shirley, I mean, I wholeheartedly agree with you. You know, Freud even said, you know, the hierarchy of needs, and trust is one of the first ones. You know what I mean? Because it has to be there in order for us to function properly in the context of a relationship. And I'm glad you brought in the dynamic of triggers, because a lot of times, more often than not, unresolved issues from the past play more of a big role than they should play in relationships. You know, in the context of the relationship, nothing was done to violate the trust. It was just that something reminded you of something from your past, and instantly you went back to that place where you were first traumatized. And so now you're reflecting or deflecting all of that, those emotions from then right to your spouse now.
Or projecting
projecting
onto them.
And so now they're like, what in the world? Where did that response come from? You know? And so we have to be very, very careful when we're talking about that thing called trust. And you know, the other dynamic too to trust is when we talk about trust, the first thing people think about is infidelity. And people don't understand that that infidelity is not the only way trust is violated in the context of a relationship. And I would go so far to say that in most cases, the infidelity is just the fruit of seeds that had already been planted within the relationship. And so, you know, I'm glad that you brought that up. Also, too, hey, just let Shannon know that your audio went out. We can't hear you on this end.
While he's getting the audio together.
You hear us?
Yep.
Yes, gotcha. Perfect. As you were talking, I just thought about with that whole trust piece, or even a lack of trust. That lack of trust is so dangerous because it becomes like a, how can I say, like luggage. You know how we talk about baggage. You literally carry it with you from relationship to relationship if it's not resolved, if it's not healed. And I think many times people go on, they leave the relationship and they feel so relieved, like, whew, don't have to worry about that anymore, but don't realize they're toting behind them lack of trust that they then infiltrate into the new relationship. And therefore it disrupts, it taints, it like we were talking about how doctors have to be completely sanitized and sterile before they do surgery. It contaminates the new relationship because everything is painted with that same brush of lack of trust.
Yep.
And when I was talking about, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
You know, when I was talking about safety and security, you know, what I meant by that was, you know, there have been times where Shannon would share his heart with me, right? And because of my internal issues, I created an environment where he felt like he couldn't trust me with his heart.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? So there are times where maybe your spouse tells you something and you run and you tell your mama everything your spouse is saying. Well, your spouse is saying, I cannot trust you. You know, like Jimmy was saying, there, you know, we put trust in the box with infidelity, but this is all encompassing. It's
Mhm.
in every area of our relationship and how we deal with one another. Whether I can trust you with my heart, with my emotions, with my
Mhm.
feelings, with my thoughts, with my ideas, my dreams. You know, this, yeah.
She's actually kind of getting into our second question.
Yeah, I
Or is
was.
that where you were going with
Yep,
that?
exactly.
All right, we're on the
Well,
same
yeah.
page.
You know, you actually are going directly into that second question because I was going to say, what are some of the common ways trust is violated in our relationships? And you brought some of them up. You know, somebody opening their heart to you, sharing their innermost feelings with you, and you go run and tell somebody else. You know, and now they're looking at you like, what in the world? You know, or when they share their innermost feelings with you, you then weaponize it and turn around and use it against them whenever you're
Yes.
upset.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Mm-hmm.
now that person is like, oh, okay, well, I don't want to communicate with you anymore.
What are some things that with you guys working with some couples, what would you say is a major aside from infidelity, what would you say are some major examples of uh, the violation of trust in a lot of relationships that you've encountered?
Well, I mean, one of the things that is glaring is that when people's expectations of marriage, wherever it came from, it goes contrary to what they're experiencing.
Mm-hmm.
So a lack of trust. If you didn't show up like my mom showed up,
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
it didn't have nothing to do with you or you being dishonest or deceitful. It's just this ain't what I thought it was going to be,
Right.
and now I'm experiencing something different, and I feel that it's a betrayal
Right.
more
Right.
so than my expectations were set in a way that it was not realistic
I was
or,
just
or
about
it's
to
just
say
not
that.
real.
So you're saying that expectations
Unrealistic.
are embedded or unrealistic expectations
Mm-hmm.
can be a fuel for lack of trust.
Yep, definitely. And then, like for Shirley and I, unbeknownst to her, I had decided to be completely honest. Uh, and not from a standpoint of I was this liar or this nefarious person going around, telling untruths. It's just sometimes you don't let somebody in completely,
Right.
right? And I had decided I wasn't going to do that. I was going to be upfront, but I didn't let her in on it. So then, when she did not reciprocate the upfrontness, I felt betrayed.
Mm-hmm.
And as a result of that betrayal, even though I didn't let her in on it, there was significant mistrust that I had as a result of what I perceived to be a betrayal.
Right. Right. What's going on, Sean? How are you doing? And Angela, thank you guys so much for joining in.
Look at
Pastor
Angie's leg.
Mitchell, thank you guys so much for joining. We appreciate you all. Um, Guys, that is so vitally important talking about those unrealistic expectations because again, this is something that Rachel and I discuss a lot in our workshops. You know, having unrealistic expectations. I told I tell this story all the time about this guy and this lady who've been married for a number of years, and every holiday, major holiday like Christmas or Thanksgiving, she would cook a ham, but she would cut the ends off of the ham. And so he asked her, he was like, babe, I mean, why do you cut the ends off the ham? She was like, you know, that's what my mama did. And he was like, so why'd your mama do that? And she was like, I don't know. I'm just doing what my mama did. So the
Mhm.
following holiday, his mother came over, and he, they were in there preparing the meal or whatever, the wife and the mother-in-law. And so he walks in the kitchen. He goes, "Hey, mom, I noticed that my wife, she cuts the ends off of the hams, and I asked her why she did that. She said because you did it. So I'm asking you, why did you cut the ends off of the ham?" She said, "Baby, because my pan wasn't big enough. That's why I cut the ends off
Right.
of the ham so the ham could fit in the pan." And
Right.
so all of those years, his wife went through wasting meat because she was just
Right.
following some instructions that she was following an example that her mom gave her, but never asked, "Why are you doing that?" and
Right.
and so that had an effect in her marriage. And too often we go into our marriages with whatever experiences we had in our household. One workshop we had, one person said she was really upset that her spouse didn't go around checking all the doors and windows before they went to bed because that's what her daddy did.
That's
Mm.
right.
And he was
Mhm.
like, I'm not your daddy.
Mhm.
I mean, and it was funny because she physically got upset because he wasn't doing that.
I
And I just thought
understand.
that was very, very key that you said that.
And from the outside looking in, it would seem like a realistic expectation for the man to make sure the house is secured. But when you heard her passion, it was like, this is what my father did. He did it every night. It really was just balled up into what she was accustomed to.
Right, right,
And that's so funny, Rachel, because one of what early on, like, my father was just the greatest protector, provider, did his own yard, fixed his own cars and everybody else's cars in the neighborhood. And he was just the handyman of handymans.
hmm
And
Mm.
so Shannon and I get married, and Shannon is the opposite from the standpoint of he's like, I'll just pay somebody to do it.
right,
That's not his
And
thing.
I'm telling you, this took me some years to get past the fact that because so in my mind I'm saying, well, my dad, he's a good man.
hmm
So if
Mm.
he's a good man and he's doing this, then why are you fighting this? Because that's what good men do.
right, right,
You
Mm.
know what I mean?
right,
And Shannon kept saying, I'm not Bud. That's what they call my dad. I'm not Bud. I'm not Bud. In my mind, I'm saying, well, you should be Bud.
right.
And so it's just this vicious cycle.
Yes.
And we don't understand how stuff like that will actually cause us to not trust our spouse
Yes.
hmm
because it planted the seed in me. You don't want to be the best you that you could be. You don't want to do the things that I'm asking you to do. And it wasn't that Shannon didn't want to do it because it was something personal against me. It's like he's like, that's not me. That's your
Right.
dad.
Right.
Right, right, and also too, it really doesn't mean that just because a man does that, he's a good man.
Right.
Um,
True.
talking to a lot of guys, um, guys are like, "Hey, I'm working hard, I'm providing, I'm doing this thing." I'm like, "Great, that's good. That's some of your responsibility, but you also have the emotional side of it too."
Oh yeah.
And the average guy is like, "Man, as long as I'm going to work, I ain't cheating. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. She should be happy." And I'm like, "Nah,
That's
there's
Mm-hmm.
another dynamic to the relationship piece that I
Mm-hmm.
think both women and men sometimes miss. For instance, you could have a woman that'll feel, well, I'm at home with you, but don't understand that that does not denote quality time.
Right.
You see
Right.
what I'm saying? Um,
Absolutely.
um, just because we're talking doesn't mean we're actually communicating.
Communicating.
Right.
Yes.
I mean, you could be running your mouth, and I'm like, yeah, but we're not. That's not really doing anything. We're
it's all
not
about the connection.
right. We're not.
Mm-hmm.
We're not pulling at
Connection.
each other's heartstrings. We're not connected. So we're having a conversation.
Right.
But is it really communication? Where
Mm-hmm.
we're actually sharing our thoughts and feelings, or are you just, you know, just talking?
I kind of want to get into why is it that because we stated that that whole sometimes unrealistic expectations could fuel a lack of trust. Why is it as
Mm-hmm.
humans why are those connected? You know, the fact that I expected you to do something that, you know, whatever my experience was, that's what I was accustomed to. Why? How does that turn into now I don't trust you?
because it is okay. Let me how I want to say this.
Take your time.
It is a personal attack. Because you take it personally, then the assumption, because the expectation isn't met, it's not met because you don't love me, because something wrong with me, because there's some
You
sort
don't
of
care enough
dysfunction,
about me.
or you don't
Not
care
to
enough
do
about me.
this. Therefore,
Exactly.
I'm starting to
When
not
it
trust
has
you.
when it has nothing to do with that at all. It's just it's like, hey, that's how you grew up. So, let's discuss what the new reality is,
Right.
and then operate from that paradigm, as opposed to the expectation, the unrealized expectation. You did this, you didn't do that. Oftentimes, see, one of the things that I think that's missing in relationships is authenticity. The ability to say, honey, your breath stink. Oh, it does? Let me pop a mint. Let me
Let me
get
fix
some
that.
mouthwash.
Right.
Let me fix that. As opposed to, how you gonna say something like
What are you
that to
talking about
me?
me?
Why you just gonna say that to me? And all that. It's like, come on, man. We really have we've become too sensitive, and the slightest little feeling of insult will have us turning our backs in bed or sleeping in the other room, and it's unnecessary.
Well, Shannon, not only that, man, not only have we become super sensitive, we've also become very prone to being coddled. And I don't know any good, healthy relationship that doesn't have that iron sharpening iron kind of thing in it. If you want to see two fake friends, they always laughing and they'll never have a disagreement. But real friends, when you see a character flaw in your friend that is going to damage them and you truly love them, you're going to say it. You're going to tell them, hey, you might want to be aware of A, B, C, and D, because that kind of, and if you really want to know how much they care about you, watch their response. And I use the analogy of the mirror. When you look in the mirror before you leave home and you see something wrong, you don't argue with the mirror, you just go change it. You just go in the closet and fix whatever it was that was wrong. But when we talk about our relationships, man, too often we get so sensitive if somebody points out a flaw. But guess what? That same person that's super sensitive is the PhD holder in pointing out your flaws.
But you know what, as you're saying that, Angela said something that I find so interesting. And it's the other aspect of what we're talking about when we talk about the unrealistic expectations being attached to the lack of trust. She says, you are not willing to fill a need I have. So how do people decipher the difference between this is a genuine need that I have, that you check the doors and because it's tied to my need to feel secure and safe.
Right.
Physically secure and safe. And so what is the line of demarcation there where somebody knows where it's not a thing of, well, you just got to get over that because I'm not your daddy. And wait a minute, let me hear what you're saying, because this sounds like this is very important to you. In order for you to
well,
feel
this is
safe.
interesting, Rachel. Using that exact same analogy that you just framed, as a husband, why wouldn't I just be, oh, babe, that's important to you? Oh, okay, I got it. I'm checking every night. Not, hey, what's wrong with you? You need to adjust that, because there's a sense that what's important to Shirley needs to be important to me. And that if I do not share that importance, even if in my mind it's not important, my actions need to demonstrate that if it's important to her, it's important to me.
That's right.
And when that doesn't happen, then we go down the rabbit hole of, oh, you don't love me like I thought you. I made a mistake. What's all of these shortcomings that present themselves that would not have normally presented themselves, heretofore.
Mm,
And one of the things that
good
we
point.
talk about is the difference between principles and preferences, right? I
Mhm.
know too many people that will go to bloody battle over their preference,
Preference. Mhm.
right? And it's like, Negro, I'm not doing that. That's what you. So what you choose to do that? I mean, that's not a. I don't. I think it is something wrong psychologically when you will go to war over a preference. So now when something that really matters comes up, I don't even want to hear you now because you've
Mhm.
been fighting about stuff that really shouldn't have, like making a molehill into a mountain, and it's like, why? I mean, is that important? Is that going to make the 6 o'clock news?
But I
That thing that you just claiming you need so much, is that going to make the 6 o'clock news?
but
You
I
know,
think I
Well,
think
this is the
go
thing,
ahead.
though.
Go ahead.
It's the culmination of your preference. Yeah, it might just make the 6 o'clock news, right? Because that goes into that whole love language piece, and
Yeah,
then being
just
very
like that.
specific, breaking it down. So I like to spend time with Shannon going riding, right? Just riding in the car. Now, that's a preference of mine,
mhm,
right? But if Shannon never meets that need or that preference,
mhm,
This is true.
then I'm going to feel neglected
mhm, mhm,
over time.
mhm,
This is true.
And so that's where what Shannon said that, hey, you know what? And listen, we have to be careful. Just because, my father cut the grass and Shannon wants to pay for it doesn't make him less of a man or whatever
Right.
the narrative is that I created around that he's
right,
not being, but when it comes to us meeting our spouse's needs, we have to stop judging it.
mhm,
Right
Mm.
now, every need we're not going to listen. If you have to pay for somebody to do the lawn, then do that.
The bottom line is the lawn got
But
cut.
the bottom line is the lawn got cut.
mhm,
In the same vein, we can't sit there and say that's not important. I'm not going to do that, which is what we find a lot of couples doing
mhm.
because it's not important to me. So
Right.
my hands are off of it. That's
Right.
your issue.
Right.
Right.
And
Right.
and that's and I agree with you 100%. I'm referring to um and I'm more than certain you all have dealt with this a time or two doing what you do. I'm talking about the manipulators.
Mm,
Everything they want is a need.
mhm.
I don't care how minuscule it is. It's a need. It's so vital. This is how if you show me you love me. They're just manipulating situations. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
And
Jimmy,
and so
that goes. Mhm.
right, and so
Yeah,
uncovering
And that's not love.
these different angles
right.
that people play to get what they want, rather than
Hmm.
what's actually healthy for the relationship or the
Yeah.
marriage.
You can't
Right.
manipulate
Right,
the situation.
but and like you said about the mowing of the lawn, right? What if you took the position, so you getting it paid for? What is the actual need? Is the need the lawn getting mowed, or is the need
Or
your husband doing it?
yeah,
Watching your
right.
husband mow the
Exactly.
You
lawn.
see what I'm saying?
I
So
do.
Exactly.
sometimes we have to be truthful about what is the need. You know what I'm
Hmm.
Hmm.
saying? The need is you do it.
Hmm.
And I
And
don't want
And
to
why
gloss
is
over.
that?
Huh?
I'm saying, and why is that? Like Jimmy said, we have to be truthful about what we think the need is, but then
This
we
is
have to
true.
really examine, like, what, like. So I had to come to the point where I had to say, why do I care how the lawn gets done?
right.
You know what I'm saying? Because I had in my mind what
A
it's supposed to
picture.
look like.
That's right. That's right. But you brought up something so deep, Shirley, and I don't want to gloss over it. And I want to make sure I make this point for the people, which is when you were talking about sometimes the preference, like you like to go riding in the car with your husband. Like
Mhm.
if it's one time, it wouldn't be a big deal. But if you never got that need met,
Right.
well, let me say that again. If that preference was never met
Mhm,
for
mhm.
you, in your mind, you're like, well, does he not care? And it's because it's embedded in a principle, which is love.
Right.
Because if he loved you truly enough,
Mhm.
and he knows something as simple as just y'all riding in the car
Right.
would please you, why wouldn't he
Why
want it?
wouldn't?
I think
Yes.
that's probably the point that y'all are bringing across, and I think that's a powerful point, which is, and you said that as well. Be careful how we judge somebody else's preference,
Mhm.
because it could be the very thing that's connected to,
Yes.
something that does make them feel good and does fulfill something within them.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
that was powerful. That was a powerful point you made.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Oh, they couldn't hear you
Yes.
before.
Yeah. Angela's like, Jimmy, your mic is low. And
Uh-huh.
it's
I
like,
think I want to ask this next question. This was our last question. Is it possible to regain the trust? And what does
Radical
it
went
take to
away.
do it? Is it possible to regain the trust? And what does it take to do it? So I guess you can, however you want to lay that out.
It's definitely possible. It is a lot of work, and it's ongoing work.
Explain
Right.
what that work looks like. Yeah.
First, one of the first things is really to have honest, open, transparent communication. Whatever the mistrust is, we need to be honest about why it's there, why it exists.
Mhm.
And I mean, we're finding that people really are having a hard time saying, you know what, this is what I did and this is why I did it.
Mm.
Because we think that we're protecting our spouse's heart by not giving all the
That's
information.
right. That, like Shannon was saying.
Yeah, but that is so not true.
Mhm.
We're actually hurting the relationship even more,
It
Right.
just festers.
you know?
That's a very good point.
Yeah, so we if you are in, this is my contention. We're not really friends.
Right.
Not really friends,
Mhm.
right? Because friends, like that true level of friendship allows people to share anything without judgment, right? And so you have to even evaluate your friendships if, in fact, you feel that you're unable to share certain things because you're being judged, or you're going to be judged. And so then, we come into the marriage relationship trying to put our best foot forward. And I'm having deja vu seriously right now. Have we had this conversation? Have we had this conversation? I feel like I've been here before.
Well, I mean, we've
We've had
certainly
it many
talked
a
about
times.
infidelity. I mean, we've always talked about
Right.
like we had one full conversation about infidelity
Right.
when y'all came here. But honestly, I think a lot of people are dealing with this. Like I'm looking at Angela's comment. She said, it is easy to lose the trust. To regain it, it is hard and it takes a long time.
Yeah. Part of that
Go ahead.
Part of that taking a long time, Rachel, is we really have a hard time letting go. You hear people say, oh, I'll forgive, but I won't forget.
Yes.
Let me tell you something. That alone is a problem.
That's right.
It is a problem. Listen,
right.
I always say that words create worlds. Ooh. So when you say, I'll forgive, but I won't forget, what you're saying is I can't forgive and I won't forgive.
I'm willing to still hold on to it.
You are willing to still hold on to it.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
And that's because to you think it's feeding something in you that you need, whether it's holding that person to the cross, whether it's not allowing them to forget what they did to you so that they won't ever do it again.
protecting
so many
yourself from being
reasons.
hurt again.
Yes, yes.
And so it's, oh, that point you're making is so deep because it doesn't have to be a long time. We're not talking about the next day, but it doesn't have to be a long time. I think what makes it longer is because the risk involved in
The
Yeah.
perceived risk.
or the perceived risk.
Perceived
But
risk,
I mean, but
mhm.
think about it. And the reason why I called it risk is because at the end of the day, if let's say I was done wrong or the trust in my marriage was violated, and I
Mhm.
have to make a decision cognitively, you know what? Either I'm going to move on with my marriage or I'm not.
Mhm.
I know I need to move on with my marriage. Now my emotions need to catch up with my cognition.
Mhm.
And those two are not always at that same level. But
Right.
here's why I call it a risk is because how many people are going to volunteer to possibly get hurt again?
Right.
When you think about how deep something hurts, you're not rushing to be in that same baby. Let me
Right.
move you
Be
just
the
a little
first
bit
one
more.
in
I can do that,
line.
camera. What's that?
Hmm. I said, yeah,
Yeah,
you're not rushing to be the first one in line.
you're not trying to be the first one in line for
Hmm.
that. But yet
Right.
cognitively, I love this person. I want to work on it. Yes, I'm upset. I think even the most mature person is going to have a hard time with it. But I mean,
Hmm.
you touch on something so key. Like you really have to be willing to let it go and
Hmm.
let it go in such a way, not where you're blind, you have blinders on now, and that person still truly was not worthy
Hmm.
because they're still carrying on in whatever fashion that they were carrying on to break that trust. But in yourself,
Hmm.
you have to say, I'm willing to do the work
Yeah.
in order for this marriage to survive or
Yes.
really survive now, but thrive later.
Hmm. Yeah.
Shannon, you look like you were thinking about something.
I'm always thinking about something.
And we
Uh,
understand you. Do you want this or not?
but now I
Sorry, y'all. We
think
having
that
all kind of technical difficulties today. Yes, go
no,
Hmm.
ahead.
you're good. I think that our willingness to like completely open up our hearts is the absolute key. You had said something like that kind of sparked this thought. As Christians, I'm a Christian. If I pray daily to God for forgiveness, why do I expect my spouse to be perfect and do nothing wrong?
Mm.
Like that's just for me a very profound aha moment. Like I, my very nature of me being a Christian is my admitting that I'm not perfect. So
Right.
why do I expect perfection from the one that is most close to me, who is equally
Imperfect.
not perfect?
Right.
And then when the imperfection shows up, we're shocked. Like, oh my goodness, you hurt me, you did this. But that's what I'm designed to do. I'm a sinner. I'm designed to hurt you. And like, how do you process
Reconcile
that
that. Mm-hmm.
and then live it? Because this is what people think. It gives people a license to do the wrong that they feel like doing, which is the what's the term? Is it not quandary, conundrum, the
Mm-hmm.
paradox of Christianity?
Right.
Because we're saved by grace, not by what we do. Well, that don't give you a right to go out and sin and do what live how you feel. Like, no, it doesn't. But don't be shocked when I fall short.
Right. Right. And I'm glad you brought that up because I think that is another very, very important factor too. Is you asked, why am I shocked or why am I upset when that person is not perfect? By the way, I always play the devil's advocate because I do believe this wholeheartedly. If we don't cover both angles of it, somebody's still left out. Somebody's still feeling
Hmm.
like I'm not being heard, my feelings are not being met, so forth and so on. But a lot of people are afraid to admit their character flaws simply because their experience with their significant other has been they've thrown it back in their face, they've heard it somewhere else in the street, so forth and so on. Then other people are afraid, and it's got to be fear to admit their faults simply because they just don't want to admit it. I I'm not gonna say I got fault. I'm not gonna say it was me because it wasn't. And they will have all of the reasons in the world, no matter how much evidence says, no, it was actually you. You know, and so it puts a strain on the trust in a relationship. Those are other things because Shannon, you said something that's key. We all say and know that we're not perfect, but what I challenge people all the time, I'm like, what are you saying when you're never wrong? You're actually saying you're perfect. If you
Mm-hmm.
cannot take fault, ownership of anything, you're perfect. I mean, so it's like nothing you do is wrong. And when have you ever been wrong? A person who don't want to admit fault can rarely come up with a. And if they do, it's something real minute. That time I left my sock on the floor. I was wrong. I shouldn't have done that. Like, you know, there's nothing of any substance. And so
Mm-hmm.
trust people again. People think that trust can be violated or is violated only through the act of infidelity, and there are so many different things that can start that seed of distrust germinating in a relationship. And we have to be very, very careful how we go about protecting the trust in our marriages and in our relationships. And when people tell me some of the stuff that they have done or do in the context of their relationship, I have to ask them, so how did you think they were going to feel? You know what I mean? Like,
But Shannon brings up a good point when he
mm-hmm,
was talking about trying to reconcile. We don't expect that spouse to continue to do whatever it is they're doing. We forgive them, but we don't want them to continue to do what they're doing.
exactly.
But yet we ask God for forgiveness daily. Um, and true enough, like He is God. And when I think about the relationship, the parallels between Christ and the church, and I'm not talking about a building, I'm talking about us, of course, and then a husband and the wife, I feel like as you look at Christ and the church, that is your goal. Like that is what you should be moving towards
Mm-hmm,
as it relates to the type of heart you should have,
mm-hmm,
the type of forgiveness, you should be willing to give.
mm-hmm. The
But
type of
the
behavior.
behavior, but
Right.
I do think humankind, like human beings, we're very different in that. First of all, there's so many variables that are involved in why we do what we do. But
Exactly.
when you think about an almighty, all perfect God, and some people struggle with trusting God.
Mm-hmm.
We know He's all powerful, but we don't behave as if He is.
Right.
But when you talk about someone who is in a relationship with you, you also want that person to be honoring you, as well as if they're hurting you, it's like they're hurting themselves, really.
Mm-hmm.
And how is it? How can two walk together lest they be agreed? So, if I'm in a relationship, after a while, it can start to become abusive. When you're dealing with abuse or addiction, abandonment, all those things you're talking about. Now the behavior has become so deviant that there has to be some type of what do you call that? When people come in and sit down and talk to you, and
Intervention.
there has to be some type sort of intervention in
Right.
place, because as human beings, we really are bent towards going left. But I feel like when somebody is in a relationship, unlike God, God is God. He is perfect. We're not. We're not there yet. To me, that's something we ever should be looking towards, to moving in that direction. But I have to be honest with you, it'd be very difficult for me. And I guess I can speak to this because I've been in that situation before where I was married. I really felt like I had done everything I could, praying, fasting, counseling, you name it. But at the end of the day, if the couple are not making a decision to be walking in the same path, or situations of distress continue to take place,
Mm-hmm.
it's very difficult to be like, well, you know what? I'm just going to be right here through all of this. People who can do it, listen, I applaud you. I applaud you because, and it can be done.
Mhm.
I'm not saying it can't be done. I mean,
Rachel,
go ahead.
as crazy as it sounds,
Uh-huh.
I would say it must be done.
It must be done. But here's
It
my
must be
question.
done.
To say it must be done does sound really good. And I think that should be the mentality of a couple. Like when I think about me and Jimmy, we have to think we refuse to lose. In it to win it, refuse to lose. That was a saying back in the day all the time. We refuse to lose. But what happens when one of the two, and when I'm talking about does not want to continue to walk on that same path, I'm not talking about, a mess up here, a mess up there. I'm not even talking about a years of mess up. I'm talking about past the years of mess up. There is a clear indicator that based on my actions, I don't want to be with you anymore. Now, in some situations, when they came to that crossroads, somehow the two still stayed together and worked it out. But there are some people that get to that crossroad that one person might still be thinking, I must work this out. But the other person may not be there anymore. What do you do in that case? Do you just stay in a situation? We kind of talked about this the last time as well. Do you just stay in that situation with somebody who clearly has made some choices and has verbalized, I want to go in another direction? Go for it.
Well, let me say this.
Well, somebody has a question for you afterwards.
Okay. We never get it right with God. It's impossible to get it right with God.
Mm-hmm.
So we live a lifetime of trying to get it right, slipping and falling, coming back, asking for forgiveness and restoration, and moving forward in that moment.
So is it of your belief? Let me just ask him this one question. Is it your belief that every couple that gets married should never split up
Yes.
and should stay together despite what happens? Shirley, look like
Yes.
she's about to say something.
That's my
That's
belief.
his belief.
That's my
What's your
belief.
belief, Shirley? And then
My belief is that if there's abuse, then no.
Well, the caveat there in the abuse situation is being together physically and still being married are two totally different things. So you should not be in the physical environment of abuse, but that doesn't mean you can get a divorce.
But
I want to approach it this way because we have a tendency as Christians to deal with one side of what God said, but not the other side of what God said on the same subject, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when we talk about God and his grace and how long-suffering he is all of that for sure. But then there's this thing at the end of it all. It's called a judgment.
Right.
Like, oh, Negro, no, you chose to keep doing whatever you kept doing. But China, you kept saying something that is very, very important. You said, we try. We're not perfect, but we're trying. We're trying to attain, but we slip, right?
Right.
There's a difference between you putting forth an effort to get better as the days go along versus you the person that's like, oh, I ain't even hearing that. I'm just doing what I want to do, and I'm going to do it however I want to do it, when I want to do it.
Well, that's not the person I'm talking about. I'm not talking about the person that says, F you, right. I'm going to do what I feel like doing.
Right. That was the person I was talking about earlier.
Oh, I'm not talking about that.
Yeah. So here's the deal, and that's why I said I like to play the devil's advocate, because there are real people that's that other person. Like, you know what? I'm going to still cheat. I got to have my side piece. I got to have this. I got to have that. Yada, yada, yada. You know, and they... That's
not what I'm talking about.
Right. No. And I know that, but trust me, it's somebody on here going, he crazy. I'm dealing with
That's why I asked the question:
Right.
Is there ever a reason
Yeah, but God,
that somebody?
Ever? Yes.
we don't, yeah,
Yes.
we don't even have to argue that. God actually listed those.
Yes.
What they
Definitely,
are.
definitely. I
Yeah.
just wanted to get it from his perspective
Yeah.
to see what he thought about that.
Yeah, and here's what.
Yes, but the thing is, a lot of these divorces are happening. And listen, there is a huge disconnection in your relationship, right? Not trying to overshadow that or make that seem small or anything of that nature. But people are going the divorce route when they do not have to.
They don't have the
totally
grounds
agree.
for it.
So Jimmy,
I agree.
Totally
that's
agree.
you said the other side of God and His grace and His judge, you know,
Is his
but
judgment.
there's this judgment, right? His judgment don't happen after a year and a half.
Well, no. I'm not saying. I'm not giving
time
it
limit.
any time limit. This is what I'm saying.
Oh yeah, there is a judgment.
Well, and here's the deal. Unfortunately, we have unfairly used time in our defense, right? You don't know when your last day gonna be, so it ain't like you just got some unlimited time to just be a fool. You know what I'm saying? But when we present it, sometimes we present it like we got a whole bunch of time to do whatever we're doing, and God just gonna let it fly. You know what I'm saying? Or we got a whole bunch of time to do what we're gonna do, and our spouse should just let it fly. That's unrealistic. It's not.
Well,
even
I mean,
God-
let's look at what the Bible says about
It's not even
let's look at-
supported biblically. You know what I'm saying?
Well, let's look at what the Bible says, Jimmy. The Bible says, I forget who it was, not very good at this, but when a disciple asked Christ, well, how many times should we forgive?
7 times.
And he says 7 times 70. That Rachel's the teacher. That sounds a little exponential to me.
490.
That's a lot.
You know what I'm saying? So I think Jesus's point there is, listen, don't get into the numbers game, because if you get into the numbers game about someone else, then I need to get into the numbers game with you.
Yeah.
And
have
you
a
don't
spirit
want me
of
to do that.
forgiveness.
Right.
Right.
And
You don't want me to do that.
The principle.
So have a spirit of forgiveness that is
Yes.
perpetual.
I agree.
That
It's
was
perpetual.
that was the lesson. The lesson was try to be forgiving. The lesson wasn't, oh, they can do it as many times as they want.
Yeah. Try
That-
to be forgiven because
the-
you're sinful too.
Exactly. That's the lesson. Jesus
In need of forgiveness.
Jesus was
Right.
really trying to teach that lesson. Like, hey, man, learn to forgive. Because we're going to go back to what
And-
Shirley said. A lot of people are getting divorced for reasons that are not valid reasons for divorce.
Right. Or because it got tough, because it got hard, because it got difficult. Oh, this too much. I could do.
Do you
better
know
by myself.
something? That right there
Come
is
again?
what you just said to me
Mhm.
is the number one reason for divorce.
Right. Well,
It's just too much.
It's too much.
It's just, listen, you reach your threshold
Right.
and it's like, I can't go no further than this.
But
This-
they don't realize that on the other side of that threshold, on the other side of that pressure, is deliverance in your marriage.
ooh,
Change that could take place
Yes.
within you, within your spouse. And I think that's why, when we talked about, I think it was last week, love, when, people always say, well, I love you, I love. No, a lot of times you replace that word with lust, or I eros you. Because true love, what does that scripture say?
no, it's not true love. It's just that kind of love.
Right.
Because eros is true love.
Right. But think about it. Think it not itself. All right.
Mhm.
When people are wanting to have a physical relationship with someone, yeah, you thinking about yourself. But at the end of the day, you're not looking out for yourself. You're not counting. It's all about what you can do for someone else, is long suffering. When you look at that scripture, if you're not rebuked by it, I'm rebuked every time I read it.
Yes.
Because it is contrary to how we as humans tend to operate. And Angela had a question for you, and I don't know if you were about to say something, but I really want you to answer it, Shannon. It says, but Shannon, are we to stop taking it personal and worry about my behavior, like your own behavior, Pastor Mitchell? That's what she's asking. Can you put her comment on the screen?
I can see it.
Okay.
I can see it. I mean, I think I think that we should never take it personal. I think that I think that at the moment you begin to take it personally, you move into more of a narcissistic way of thinking that it's about you. Like, how you apologize for something that only about you? Like, how do you enter into a situation and you start thinking you're doing this because of me, and I just met you,
Right.
right? If you know you didn't do nothing wrong, now, there are times when we should say, I'm sorry or forgive me, even when we haven't really caused a grievance, just to bring about peace. That's wise. And it's not bearing false witness. You owning your part that you played in it. You are acknowledging that there was an offense, whether it was intentional or unintentional, right? But you got sometimes that people they're like, I ain't had nothing to do with that.
Right.
That was not me at all. That's you. You crazy. Something wrong with you. And I think when we get to that point, it's really dangerous.
And to Angela's question, should we worry about our own behavior? That's the only behavior you can change.
Right.
That's the only behavior.
So why
can
not focus on just your behavior? With Shannon, our personal experience has been, so I used to take things very personal, very, very personal. And I had to ask myself, right, what is it that I want? What do I want to feel? What do I want the connection between us to look like? And how am I going to achieve that?
Right.
So if I'm taking things personal, up to this point, where has it gotten me and where has it gotten us?
Right.
So I think when it comes to, like, the question is it possible to gain trust, and what does it take to do it? We have to really start asking ourselves questions, and we have to answer honestly.
Yes.
Period.
Even when we're going to be perceived as the bad guy, or perceived as the person with some faults, or perceived as, because a lot of times we're not going to be truthful if we are going to be on the wrong end of the stick, so to speak. If I'm not going to be perceived as good and kind and loving and whatever, I'll just keep my feelings to myself, or I won't say what I need to really say that will bring some peace to this situation. So yeah,
Jimmy,
I agree with you.
that goes back to what you were stating earlier about having a hard time forgiving. Right? The reality is that takes a huge level of humility. And that is the humility that many of us don't want to feel, because we actually put negative connotations behind it.
Yes.
We think that makes us weak.
Yes.
I apologize. That's saying, so for me, what that used to look like was, something's wrong with me. I'm doing something bad. Right? And because of trauma that happened to me early on in my life, that was a trigger for me having to apologize, because it took me right back to that place of me doing something wrong, which I actually didn't do something wrong. Something wrong was done to me.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
You understand?
I'm gonna look at this like Shannon did. Shannon says it's amazing to him how we every day have to ask God for forgiveness, right? Because we've taken inventory of our actions, let's just say for that day, right? So we know, oh Lord, please forgive me, A, B, C, and D. But we don't have that same mentality when it comes to our relationships. We find it weak when I have to say I was wrong in my relationship.
Yes.
We find it traumatizing when I have to say I was wrong in my relationship. But you can go to God, and guess what God has actually said in his word? I ain't even hearing you.
Yeah.
Go on, make it right over there, and then you can come back. You just wasting your time on your knees every day praying to me, because I ain't even hearing you, because you haven't made it right over there.
Yeah.
So go on and keep playing your game. Go on, keep being pretentious, because I'm not hearing you. And so we got to get out of this false reality that we cannot admit fault.
Hmm.
Actually, God says we should be doing that one to another. When I know I wronged you, or even like Shannon said, even if I wasn't aware of it and you bring it to my attention,
Hmm.
and what you said, I can recall that it actually happened. Oh wow, my bad. You know what? I wasn't even aware that I did that or said that. Even I didn't even know that that made you feel that way. You know what I'm saying? I'm sorry. And not only say that, I'm sorry or I apologize, whatever your preference is, you seek not to repeat that behavior again. See, because that's when they really know that you're actually sorry.
This is a perfect segue to the question I have
Mm-hmm.
when you say
Hmm.
that if they seek not to repeat that behavior again. This question said, is it possible to regain trust? I'm going to change the second half of it. Is it possible to regain trust when your partner is not behaving or doing anything to gain your trust back? Because remember, the question she was asking us about, so I just need to worry about my behavior. So let's say we're focusing on us. Rachel's focusing on Rachel. Jimmy has done some things to break my trust and continues to do so. Is it possible for me to regain trust of him if his behaviors never change?
No, I do not believe so. That's just like when we were talking about, in the beginning, a baby being born, right? If you do not come to that baby's rescue, that baby is going to know I cannot trust you to meet my needs.
Right.
Period. There's no way somebody can keep doing something. Oh, but I'm going to trust you.
So a marriage could never thrive.
Listen, that is the foundation
Right.
of any relationship.
That's right.
Because that is safety, that is security. Those are the two most important things to any human.
I totally disagree.
That is so powerful because think about, see, this is what I've learned to do, and I think this has helped me mature. It's like, okay, stop looking at marriage and relationships outside of how God deals with you, right? We love to throw God in there, right? But we don't paint the whole picture of God. God's like, listen, I'm going to give you time to change. I'm not giving you time for you to stay the same. Because if you choose not to change, there is going to come a time when he's going to say, I never knew you. Go on.
Depart from me.
Depart from me. You know what I'm saying? So why don't we really address that too when we're talking about these different dynamics, even from a personal standpoint? I know this. If my relationship with God is such that because God is so long-suffering and he's merciful, that I just keep choosing to sin, right? I keep choosing to sin. And here's the crazy part. God, if we believe God to be who we say he knows the future. He knows the beginning and the end. Like, God's like, oh, I'm still going to give you a chance, even though I know you ain't going to take it. Right? That's God. I know you're not going to take it, but I'm still going to give you an opportunity to change. In our relationships, when we talk about being realistic and not being so, I just call it delusional. There is no way somebody can trust you or begin to regain trust or reestablish trust when you keep doing the same thing that violated the trust from the beginning. Yeah. It is impossible. It's impossible. Insane, and that ain't even biblical. I mean, so we because God don't even do that. God will forgive you because you've acknowledged that you were doing something wrong and you're making an effort to change. He says, turn from your wicked ways. He didn't say keep doing it. Just keep going down that path, because he's like, no, turn from it. And now as you're striving, as Shannon said earlier, to be better, you slip and fall. Oh man, dog it. Lord, please forgive me. Hey, all good. Get on up, dust yourself off, keep moving forward. Yes, sir.
That's a first. He looks like my students on virtual learning.
Rachel,
raise your hand button.
I'm just curious about how many new sins we committed. We ain't committing no new sins.
True.
We doing the same stuff over and over and over again. We're going back to God for the same stuff
Same crap.
over and over and over. It ain't nothing new. I don't stop lying, then I become a murderer.
Right.
That's not happening.
I'm
So,
lying.
And
so, so the person doing wrong, like if we're doing wrong in the face of God, we can continue to trust God, but does God trust us? You know, as we think about, I keep thinking back to that relationship.
I don't think I think that God trusts us as far as He's able to. Like, you can trust a child, a 3-year-old child with car keys to drive them down to Walmart, and it's like, my baby can't do that.
So
I don't
that
even
goes-
have no expectation of my baby to
that
do
goes
that.
back to my point of when somebody is in a relationship and he or she, I'm not even gonna put a one on it, he or she is trying to regain that trust back in that marriage. They're trying to stay on this path, but one person keeps going off path. Like you said, it's like, wait a minute, you're showing me over and over again. That's that same thing that we were just talking about.
This
Go
is
ahead.
the thing as far as regaining trust. To me, regaining it, you have to earn something.
Mhm.
So you just like you save up enough trust in the bank, and then you can afford to get the car,
Mm.
right? I don't think that that's how God deals with us personally, and that's not how I have tried my best. I'm not perfect with it. I slip up, but that's how I deal with Shirley. Shirley, she was unfaithful, right? I fully expect to walk in at any moment on a full orgy. Period. And now that's the extreme, right? But my point is that I don't put that past her. Will it hurt? Yes. Ouch. Will I like it? No. Ouch. Do I expect it not to happen? How can I not expect for it to happen when you're a sinner?
Well,
So it might not be a butt naked orgy, but it might be, where you at, honey? I'm at Walmart, and you were hanging out with Rachel and the girls.
right.
So you lied. You didn't have a butt naked orgy. You lied.
Right.
Well, I expect for you to lie. Honey, I didn't like that. I deal with it in the moment, but I can't say, oh, now I can never trust her ever again. She's violated.
That's what Angela asked.
Yeah, and I'm glad Angela asked this. So does that mean you do not trust her?
The trust I have for her, she didn't earn. I gave it to her.
Right.
Okay.
Right. So
She didn't earn that.
So from the dynamics of earning, I agree with you wholeheartedly, right? But when we're talking about trust, and you said I don't believe that's the way God deals with us. I agree with you that God doesn't require us to earn it, so to speak. He gives it, right? However, he does ask us to do something when we have done wrong. He says to repent.
Yes,
Right?
of course.
Repenting is the reestablishing of the relationship with God again.
Mm-hmm. I would agree with that.
So if repenting is the reestablishing of a relationship with God again, in the context of our relationship, if I'm repenting, but I'm still doing the same thing, or what if I don't repent at all? There is a dilemma if I'm told that I need to trust a person that is not trustworthy. That's a problem. Like that's like a person that lies all the time, but they're offended when you call them a liar.
Mm-hmm.
A person that steals all the time, but they're offended when you call them a thief. I don't care if you're offended. You meet the definition of this title. Like God says, this particular thing is a sin. I don't care if you don't like being called that. if you're doing this, he says if you're a liar, you're a liar. If you married and you're sleeping with someone else, you're an adulterer. If you're, you know what I'm saying? But when we have to take ownership of the title that we've earned, we now don't like it. You know what I'm saying? And to the point that it damages any ability to move forward with reestablishing trust. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
If you keep, I'm with Shirley 100. If you keep doing the thing that destroyed our trust, the trust in the relationship, and you just hell bent on doing it anyway.
Herein lies the problem, Jimmy. Herein lies the problem. You have some people that never do it again,
Right.
but their spouse still never trusts them.
But see,
I'm so glad he brought that up because I was thinking about something about that.
See now, okay, now we're talking about something else, right?
What are we talking about?
Okay, so remember earlier you made this statement. You said, you believe that there's something wrong when a person says, "That's not me, that's you," right? Because once you have, according to Scripture, once you have gone to a person that you've wronged, and you have humbly apologized or said you were sorry for what you've done, and now you have literally turned and you're no longer doing that, but that person chooses not to forgive you. According to Scripture, you're no longer in the wrong. You are good.
Well, isn't forgiveness and trust two different things?
Huh?
Isn't forgiveness and trust two different things?
I would venture to say no. How can you say you forgive me, but you don't trust me anymore?
People say that all the time.
Maybe
Right, I'm not saying that we don't say it. That's a social.
Like you can forgive a person that molested you,
right.
But you don't necessarily have to trust them around your children.
Here's the deal. Here's what I will say. I no longer am angry with you anymore, but you're not keeping my kids no more.
Yeah, there's a difference. We talked about this one time in church. Like being reconciled with the situation, it doesn't mean you have to go back to the way things were, but you no longer have a visceral reaction.
There's no malice.
There is no malice, ill intent in your heart when that thing comes back up.
Right.
And you kind of just touched on something I was thinking about. We've been talking about regaining the trust from the perspective of the person who feels like they've been wronged.
The injured person.
The injured person. But one thing I do want to make sure we say is the person who has broken the trust, we already kind of know that they should be working towards rebuilding that trust. And the other thing, and this was a biggie for me, if I'm being transparent, when I was in that kind of a situation, that person I felt no humility. I felt no sincere work towards, you know what? Let me release any anxiety that she might have about said situation. Let me be transparent. When she asks me a question, let me go ahead and answer it if I have nothing to hide. And I'm not saying that the person who's been injured should, for the rest of their lives, hold this gun over their head, questioning about every little thing. It's like, my goodness, when will I ever truly be forgiven? But I do think there's a responsibility on the end of the person who caused the harm to be completely transparent, to answer the questions. Even sometimes they might be annoyed by them because that other person is really trying to get in a place of, I just want to trust you again. I want to be Go ahead.
And to add to your point, to me, there's a third
component,
stage or level to that as well. The person who injured you may have also been injured.
Right.
Good point.
Hurt people.
That's right.
Yeah. So that's why earlier I was saying we really need to, people try to push it like, okay, let's just move on.
Right.
But no, we really need to know, why was that decision made? Like, why do you continue to do that?
You didn't
what prompted that?
Right.
It didn't just come out of thin air.
That's right.
There's always a reason.
There's always a reason.
Shirley, I have been when you start learning human behavior and you take it seriously, you recognize that nobody just does something for no reason, right? Now, I have learned in my 50 years of living, I don't deal with isolated situations because, anybody's entitled to a bad day, right? But it's totally different when that's what that person is every single time you see them. See, that's no longer a bad day. That's no longer a mistake. That is a pattern of behavior. So once you're dealing with a certain pattern of behavior, now your mindset has to change in how you deal or operate with this individual. Because, they say if it quacks like a duck, it got feathers like a duck, it has webbed feet like a duck, it's probably a duck. Let's deal with
call a thing a thing.
Yeah, let's deal with it appropriately. And so now this is the perfect segue into the close of this topic. We've talked about the importance of trust in a relationship. We've even discussed what a lot of the different areas of trust that can be broken, how they can be broken. We've even discussed how to regain it. But I want you to give us some how-tos. You know what I'm saying? Give the listeners some how-tos. How do we get back? Or, because some people may have never been there. Or how do we either get back to this place where we can have a healthy, thriving relationship, or how do we establish it from the beginning?
And before she answers, it'd be great if you can do it from the perspective of kind of like what we were just talking about, from the injured and the one that caused the injury.
Exactly, because both parties are very vital in this process.
Yes.
The injured and the one that has caused the injury. Which perspective do you want to do, baby?
So these are the reveal the trust. Tip number 1 from Shannon and Shirley.
That would be the honest and open, transparent communication, right? And that is where you need to go and sit, you and Jesus, right? And I'm saying just what we did,
right?
Whatever you believe in, whoever the higher power is for you, right? For me, it was God, it was Jesus. So we really had to have a talk, have a heart to heart on what is going on with me. Why am I making the decisions that I am making? Why am I responding and reacting the way that I am toward someone that I love and who I know loves me? And I had to do what was very hard for me to do, and that was really to be vulnerable and open up my heart and to begin to share with Shannon on a very transparent and honest level.
So you had to be willing to open up your heart. This is coming from the person who is injured or the person who has injured?
I'm for me, just from our experience, both.
I agree.
Okay.
Yeah, this is both.
Okay.
From the standpoint of a person that has caused an injury, but it could be bidirectional. So Shirley introduced me to a book called The Four Agreements, and this has really helped me navigate this phase. Right. So the first agreement is be impeccable with your word, but not from a standpoint of like necessarily just being honest, but also being authentic. You know, so me saying something and me not saying something could be equally as damaging. So be impeccable with that, like really be without a lack of authenticity when dealing with anyone. It shouldn't just be when I'm dealing with Shirley that I do this. For it to become who I am, this has to be how I deal with everyone. right?
Right.
Another agreement is don't take anything personal. Shirley, where were you? I was at the store, babe. Oh, you was at the store, whatever. If I was at the store and I tell her I'm at the store and she chooses not to believe I'm at the store, I can't now take down all the weight of what she's holding over me and not be able to just say, hey, well, you deal with that. And without being able, if you keep taking stuff personal, you're going to always get into this cycle of, as a person that has caused injury, you're in a cycle of constantly trying to prove yourself.
Right.
Shannon, you said something that's powerful, man, because if you're the person that caused the injury and she calls you and says, where are you at? And you say, I'm at the store, but she chooses not to believe you. For you not to take it personal would mean for you to put yourself in her shoes to see how damaging whatever it was you did actually is. And if you were in the same shoes, would you be so quick to get over it as we sometimes as the offender expect them to get over it? You know
Well, we want them to get over it.
Yeah.
To help take the pressure off of us.
Right.
Exactly. Because I firmly believe most of us who pressure people to forgive quickly are the ones who don't want to deal with what we've actually done. We don't want to deal with the damage that we've actually done. Oh, let's just go back to how it was. We can't because of you.
It won't go back to how it was anyway.
You don't want to own it. You know what I'm saying? You don't want to own it. You don't want to talk about your responsibility or role. And so it really, really does hurt, man. That was a good perspective.
And let me interject something here. And this is what I realized, especially when I went through my own thing. Because I used to pray, oh, I just want it to be how it used to be. I want it to be how it used to be. My prayer changed to, I want it to be better than it was. So whatever this was supposed to expose, let it be exposed. Let us work through it so that we can move to the next level of our relationship. And I think that's important because I stayed stuck in that place of denial of, I can't believe this is really happening. I can't believe this is happening in my marriage. Oh my goodness. And then once I moved from that to, okay, Lord, I have no control over any of this.
Right. Now what?
Make it better than what it was. That's powerful.
Listen.
That's powerful.
You said something very, very key. And we kind of hit on this earlier. When we are the victim, right? And we take the mature route to say, okay, God, what was the lesson in this thing? That's what we like to call an introspective perspective, right? The truth is, we don't like to take that introspective perspective because what we may find in that introspection is, you know what, I breeded this.
I allowed.
I allowed it, or I may subsequently have caused it because of some things I was doing or not doing. Now, they didn't have to do whatever they did, but see, me being introspective, going, God, what is this lesson that you're trying to? Because when we're the victim, we're hardly ever introspective to see what was my role in this. Because we ain't never trying to take no responsibility. It's all about what they did. And that's why I tell people, be so very careful of giving people outs for growth. Now, listen to me. Be very careful for giving your significant other an out to grow. See, when you do something wrong and you know you were doing something wrong, all the focus is going to be on your wrongdoing and not whatever areas of growth that they actually have and need. And so it's important for us to, be very introspective. Like, okay, could I have done something differently? Oh, wow. Did I do anything to to even make this possible.
To,
You know what I'm saying?
to foster this type of
Right.
environment.
And honestly, when we really sit back and analyze our behavior, sometimes if we're truthful, I mean, like really being transparent and honest, you're like, God, dog, yeah, that hurt that you did what you did, but I can see how that thought even crossed your mind, or you know what I'm saying? Because I see now what I was actually doing. To me, that is a person who is mature, and that is a person who really wants the best out of their relationship. You know what I'm saying? And Shirley, now that I have you online, I'm gonna just tell you this. I have a deep admiration for you. Listening to you all's talks, there were some things that were so very key that you've said in a lot of different things that I've heard you all do, you know, in workshops or even when you're talking. It was how you came to the conclusion of who you were in the context of your relationship and how it affected your husband. And you took total ownership of it and recognized the damage that it caused, right? And then it made you see things differently about him. We don't do that often.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like we don't really do that much. You know, and you know, and that's the reason why we loved you all talking about these tips, not only from the perspective of the victim, but also from the perspective of the person who was the offender. Because sometimes both people are equally as hurt.
Yeah.
Even though one has done something that everybody now knows what they've done. Because they don't know what that other person was doing behind them closed doors. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I think that is very key. We got a question.
Yeah, Angela,
you're about
at the first part of what she said, or the second part? I would say the second part. She said, but if they do own it, how do they work through it and not fester, learn the lesson and become better? And I'll let you answer, but the first thing that just came to my mind was sometimes you need a third party to help you through that process. Not many people can just go from that to, okay, everything is great now. You know, there's so many things, like you talked about maturity.
Oh no. Angela, she said, I go over to her. Is it still going?
It's
Because it just looked like on yours it was moving.
Well, because I'm moving. See how I'm moving my head base side to side? But they're frozen. That means the stream is still live, and they just see us.
So can they hear us?
I don't know if Jimmy and Rachel can hear us.
But the other people can? Got Angela, can you guys hear? Angie, can you hear? What happened? Can you hear Angela?
So Jimmy and Rachel dropped from the stream.
Angie, can you hear? She said, I hear you, Shannon.
Okay.
So Angie, I want to answer that question. But if they do own it, how do they work through it and not fester, learn a lesson and become better? And that goes to what Jimmy was talking about earlier. What helped me to take ownership and for me to own my stuff? Number one, that like I started saying, that took a conversation between me and God. And I literally said to God, I need you to show me me, right? But this is the key in God showing me me. That whole picture of me seeing my messed up, jacked up self, I was saying, wow, how can I stand in judgment of Shannon? How can I condemn him when I have been a sucky wife? I have not been the best wife that I could be. I have not been the person that I would want to come home to. So now who am I judging? If I'm going to judge him, then I have to judge me. And so when you're owning something and you're taking complete responsibility, that means you're looking at yourself and you're looking at your faults and your shortcomings. You have no time now to look at what anybody else does. You have no time to sit and they say, well, he's not doing this or he didn't do that. You learn the lesson. You learn the lesson by asking, taking inventory, asking God, and taking inventory on what are the lessons that I need to learn. And listen, you'll hear people say, well, I don't know. Yeah, listen, yes, you do know. You ask yourself one question. Would I want to come home to me? Am I the wife that I would want to come home to? Am I the husband that I would want to come home to? Look at your behaviors, your actions. Think about the things that your spouse has been saying throughout the years and take inventory.
Oh, really?
And when you do that, you absolutely will be able to understand how to let go.
You might be talking to nobody here. She did, but that was at 7:34. It's 5 minutes later. So, Angela, can you still hear us?
Angie, dear, can you help us?
Angie, because they said they ain't got no internet. So
she said, I can hear and see Shannon and Shirley.
She says, I can hear. She says, I can hear and see Shannon and Shirley. How is that possible?
What? Oh, wow.
No. I mean, how are they still hearing us? How is she still hearing us on the stream? Guys, we're on the phone with Rachel. If you can hear us, I don't know if you can, but we're on the phone with Rachel and Jimmy, who lost power.
Angie said, I can hear Shannon shortly. Well, thank you guys. Thank you for joining us. We really appreciate you guys.
It says we still live, and maybe that's a part of the delay, because it's a delay. So
we hope that we've been able to be a blessing to you all. And you can check us out at Marriage Inc. Marriage Inc.
Are you on the Strive? Are you on the stream?
Media platforms.
Oh, you just hear her. Oh, you hear her talking. We don't know if we're talking to people or not. So on behalf of Jimmy and Rachel from Relationship Real Talk, this has been an amazing time and experience. And I think that you guys can't hear us anymore because no one's commenting. So
Angela said, I can hear Shannon.
She said that 79 years ago, baby.
No, she did. She just said that.
No,
it's
she didn't. Right. It's 7:56 now.
It's 7:38. She said that a minute ago. Yes, you are so live.
Oh, she's responding.
Yes,
she is responding to us. How is this happening?
On behalf of Jenny and Rachel Rogers,
who are on the phone.
Real Talk.
They're on the phone.
Are they on the phone? Shannon and Shirley of Marriage Inc. We thank you guys for joining us. Thank you for your questions and your feedback.
She done took over the Relationship Real Talk.
We hope that you will come back next week, same time. There's some weather going on that disconnected our brother and sister, but they'll be back next week
Shirley,
at 6 o'clock. Relationship Real Talk.
That's trust right there. That's trust. That's trust. All right, guys.
Love you guys.
Now we're going to leave. We'll see. Can you guys come back up, Jimmy? Because we're still in the studio. We holding. They coming back, y'all. This is like the COVID situation.
Angie's sticking with us.
Angela's the only one on this. No, it's some others on there.
There's some others on there. Yeah, man, it's trust thing, man. This trust thing is a beast.
And Angela is rocking with you.
And let me say this: in trusting, right, in building trust, you must allow your spouse's needs to guide the process, right? Because it's not about you and your needs. Your job is not to protect your heart. Your job is to protect your spouse's heart. That's why on this journey of regaining trust, allow your spouse's needs to guide your actions. Seriously, I had to stop.
There it is.
Listen, no weather, no storm can keep us away.
Guys, listen. The thunder hit and the lights went off.
They flickered and went off.
I was
Oh.
hoping that it would have shown Rachel's reaction, but it cut off before her reaction
I
showed
did.
on the
I
playback.
said,
Oh, Rachel.
and I stayed like this for a minute.
God,
Oh,
she came
goodness.
back. I was like, I was sitting here going, how are they still live on a feed that we don't even have no more?
Right.
But you know what? I'm not mad. I appreciate
But,
it.
but Shirley, no surprise. that
Listen,
you
no,
had
your
to
power
say-
went out, but your internet connection was still going.
No,
Mm.
listen, our internet was out.
according to our
What?
laptop.
Yeah, our.
Oh yeah,
internet
no,
was
it wasn't out. It
Listen,
wasn't out.
Whoa.
I yelled downstairs. I was like, "Shar, is your internet on?" She was like, "Nope." I was like,
Woo,
That-
come
that
through,
was Holy
Jesus.
Ghost Wi-Fi. Holy Ghost
Yeah, that's
Wi-Fi.
what
"Listen," and we plugged into the Ethernet, so the Ethernet went out and wireless was out because Rachel is wireless
Wow.
on her computer, and I'm sitting here like, "Man, we did." In the
But I
wireless.
mean, but we didn't miss a beat because
Shirley held it down.
Oh man, Shirley. Once we realized what was going on, yeah, Shirley was in there.
But we got Angela. We got to send Angela a T-shirt, guys, because
She said, "Welcome
Angela
back."
kept us.
We're gonna send her one
Yes.
as well.
She
What's
was,
up?
yeah, we're gonna have to.
She
Angela,
said, "We
why
are
don't
so
Why
live."
don't you send us in send us your
Inbox,
information in
yeah.
the inbox so we can
Your
get
T-shirt
you,
size.
Yeah, T-shirt size, so we can get you one. She talking about God.
Yes, Angela.
Yes, girl. That's how people grow. To be quite honest with you,
Yeah.
sometimes let me just say this because I feel this in my spirit, and this is why I'm doing what I'm doing.
Uh-oh.
A lot of times, people are so afraid to expose
Mhm.
that their marriage is not going well. or that
Yes.
things are not the way they need to be. It's like we wear these masks and people are hurting, people are in pain, marriages are literally falling apart. So I admire the people, just because you comment, we're not thinking your marriage is falling apart,
Right.
but that you're thirsty and you have a quest to know,
Yes.
how can I do better?
Mhm.
How can my marriage be better? How can I thrive? You know, because
Mhm.
right now we barely surviving.
Right.
That's
Right.
huge to get to that point, because believe it or not, more people are barely hanging on by a thread
Mhm.
Yeah.
than like
Yeah.
to say so or
Right.
put it out there.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying put it out there to just anybody, but really have an open heart to be willing to do the work that it takes
And she said,
to,
okay.
Mhm.
to get that together.
Praise
Yes.
God. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, definitely send us that information because we appreciate you because we had no clue on this end what was going on.
We was in a bad way.
Yes.
I was like, how are they still on live and our whole feed is gone?
Listen, Shirley was over there preaching.
Yes, she was.
I said, who is that?
He's so
Still
silly.
going on?
And Shannon doing his comedic commentation of it.
Yeah,
That was
but
hilarious.
Shannon came through with the phone call.
Right.
Because he thought we were disconnected there for a minute, and I was like, no. They were like, no, they hear you. We're still on.
Yeah, I was like, let me mute these mics before I say something crazy.
Before you say something crazy.
I said, Jimmy, I think we're still live.
I was like, nah, let me go ahead and mute these mics just in case.
Because he liable to say something crazy.
Right.
That's good stuff. But yeah, were you able to respond to what we first started talking
Yes.
about? With
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, she expounded all right.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
If you must say so yourself.
Right. Y'all didn't see y'all profile picture change?
Right.
It's a picture of Shirley.
Okay, real talk.
Look, guys, we do appreciate you all, man. This has been a very, very good conversation, and I pray that it does affect people in a positive way, because I know it definitely had a positive effect on me. Just hearing the different perspectives, man, and more importantly, just to know that in spite of whatever you're going through, there's really still hope if you desire for it to work out.
Yeah.
And that it does take both parties to make it work.
Yes, Angie, it's recorded. It's recorded.
It should be at least on
It'll
Facebook
be
Live.
on. Yep.
We
it'll
lost
be
you
on-
again, Jimmy and Rachel.
Okay. I was
It'll
gonna
be
say,
on
the storm
Facebook.
is moving through.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Is it rumbling and grumbling out there?
Quick.
Right. But yeah, I do love the fact that you guys are in this ministry as well, because we're dealing with this pandemic of COVID-19, but there's been another pandemic that's been going on for a long time, and that's these marriages struggling.
Oh, that's
Man.
divorce, bro. Listen.
Woo.
If the COVID-19 statistics were similar to the divorce statistics,
Yeah.
the world would be in an uproar. Like if 45%
50%, yes.
to 50%, from 30 to 40% of the human race died from COVID,
Right.
that would be like, oh my God.
Right. Right. But we're not seeing marriage that way.
No, we don't see
No.
marriage as important. We don't see divorce as death.
Well, and that's because we don't really grasp the effect that it has.
Yeah.
We don't grasp the effect that it has for generations. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Like, man,
And not even Jimmy, I'm sorry to cut you off,
mhm,
and not even inter-family generationally, but the communal
yes,
effects
Yes.
of
That's what I'm-
divorce,
that's what I'm
like
saying.
the economic effects.
yes,
Because if Shirley and I split, I got a standard of living, she has a standard of living that's based on us being together.
Yep.
Human nature will have us split and still try to live like that individually.
And can't.
Mm.
Right. And then
Right?
the effects it have on the children, the effects it has.
That is
It
That
just
part.
it just goes.
But that's the generational part.
I have often said this. I have one major regret in this life, and I've done some wrong in this life, but I have one
Mhm.
that if I could have done it again, I would have definitely made a different choice, and that was being divorced from my daughter's mother, because of the damage it caused just between our relationship for the number of years that it did. You know what I'm saying?
And can I say something, Jimmy?
Mm-hmm.
To that point, and listen, we can go down a whole rabbit hole
Let's not.
of this. But
Let's not.
I was talking to somebody today, and they shared a sentiment that so many people shared. And somebody they know is struggling in their marriage, and they want a divorce, and they were saying, "Oh, the kids will be okay. They're resilient. They're bounce back." I want to tell anybody out there listening that is a lie.
Yes, it is.
Stop saying the kids are resilient, they'll bounce back. Like it's
Right.
just, you know,
Like it's no big deal.
it's no big deal.
Oh yeah.
It crushes them, it damages them
Yeah.
greatly. And the work that it takes to get them halfway okay,
What you say?
please.
What you say?
Yeah. Yeah.
And listen, guys, I want to look at Angela's
I
last
do not know how to be a
statement.
strong wife to stand by my man and work it out.
Mm.
That's a very, very, I just want to acknowledge that transparency. Because she didn't put a question mark, it was
That's
a
right.
period.
It was a
Right.
statement.
Right. Right.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
See,
powerful.
yeah. Angela, thank you. Because
Mhm.
too many of us are afraid to say that.
Mhm.
I don't know how to do this.
Yeah.
But that's right where God wants her.
Mm.
Mhm.
Because once you surrender like that, okay, God,
She's open.
you're open. Because
Yep.
many times, when people don't take that mindset, God might be trying to show you how to do it,
Mhm.
but there's a blockage because you're still trying to do it in your own way.
Mhm.
Yes.
So that truly is the first step. And literally, he hears, he knows, he understands, even if you can't come up with the words to say. But
Mhm.
simply what you just said, he can help you. He can show you. And of course, with the help of other people
Mhm.
that are trusting people, people that are that believe in God and biblical principles to help you get back on track and apply that in your practical life.
So let me just ask this question, Shirley and Shannon.
Mhm.
Do you all want to reach out first, or you know, because this is an off the air conversation that we, you know, Angela needs and wants to have.
Yeah, I'll call
And
Angela.
I'll reach out too. Just let me, let me know when you're done. But Angela, I'll send you a message, private message, and then that way we can schedule a time and a day to talk. So, but that is powerful. But Angela, also don't forget, send us a message in our inbox with your t-shirt size and the information we need to get that shirt to you. And again, we do really truly appreciate.
She said, I know how to be an independent woman and make that money.
Most of us know
Oh
how to
yeah.
survive.
You know,
Yeah.
that's the part that
That's called surviving.
we
know how to do that.
we focus on.
Yeah.
But you know,
And she is a survivor.
Yeah, we know
She
how
is
to
a
do that.
survivor.
so Angela is a good friend of you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's our girl.
Yeah,
See,
we love
listen,
Angela.
listen.
Awesome,
Yeah,
awesome.
Here's the one trait black
she's
people
very
have.
open and honest. Yeah.
And crazy.
Well, she y'all's friend, so I mean, she has
Yeah.
a little hint of that. Yeah.
Yes.
That means we are too.
One of the one of the things
A lot of
that
things.
black people have definitely acquired over the years is the ability to survive.
Mhm.
We
Mhm.
know how to survive, but the problem is
Yes.
most of us struggle with thriving.
Mhm.
And in our survival, a lot of our survival skills are dysfunctional.
Mm-hmm.
But we've been so successful at it until we think that that's the norm.
Mhm.
But I know for Rachel and I, that's one of the things we say. Teaching biblical principles in practical ways. So your marriage can thrive and not just survive. And I know that you guys say that as well too. But I think learning how to become a thriver rather than just a survivor is a process within itself too, because it requires a totally different mindset.
Right.
Yeah.
And how you view things, how you approach things, your what we call it, your ability to even think, your critical thinking skills have to kick in when you become a thriver. Like most people that thrive, when problems come, they find solutions. That's why they stay on top.
What also makes it tough is you could have been part of a generations of surviving.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you never really saw what a thriving marriage looks like.
Right.
Not in your home. You may have like looked at people maybe at church or in your day-to-day life and perceived that their marriage was thriving.
Right.
But to actually see what that looks like day in, day out in your home.
Yeah.
Now this is a crazy thing. What we do know is what it don't look like.
Right.
Right? When we're experiencing it, we could be like, nah, this not.
This can't be it.
This don't sound like nothing like the definition that I envisioned
Exactly.
with thriving.
All I heard of, this don't look like none of that because most of us
Right.
are dysfunctional.
But it's
Yeah.
not perfect.
Yeah.
It's not perfect.
But look, again, guys, thank you all so much for joining us, man. We truly do appreciate it, and we're looking forward to joining you all next month.
Yes, sir. May 2nd, 1st and 2nd.
Yeah.
The first, ironically, our first Thrive Marriage Conference.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's right. We're
And-
looking forward to that.
Yeah.
Can you tell them how they can find you, people who are listening? Because, there's plenty of space for
Shirley did that already.
She did that?
Yeah, you remember?
Did I
She gave.
Oh.
No, I'm just playing. No, do it again, Shirley, and also tell people about the conference that's coming up.
You want to talk about where you can find us?
Yep, you can find us on all platforms, Instagram, Facebook at Marriage Inc. Marriage, email marriageinc.us.
That's our website,
Oh, is that our website?
www.marriageinc.us.
Okay,
That's not our
that's our
email.
website.
Our email is info
At marriage.
marriageinc.us.
And
But
give the people some information about the upcoming conference next
Yeah.
week.
yes, on May 1st and 2nd, this is a virtual marriage conference that God placed on our heart to do. It doesn't feature us really at all. It features those that we have come across that are experts in areas that will help your marriage grow from a surviving marriage to a thriving marriage. And the title of the conference is Thrive. The registration will go live on Tuesday of this week. You got to register. It is not going to be aired on Zoom or it's not going live. It's none of that. So you actually have to register and to make yourself available. It is no charge during this time. God told us this is not the time to be trying to come up. This is the time to give to as many people as possible. And so that's what we plan to do on May 1st.
Such a different aspect within the marriage or finances. You guys will be dealing with blended families. What else?
There's some good stuff. There's good stuff coming up. We don't want to give out all of those particulars yet, but we have some great areas of focus. We have a great keynote speaker. Our keynote speaker is Jeremy Anderson. He will be doing the keynote, and we have just great coaches, just like yourselves, who are willing to give to as many people as possible. So we're looking. So registration is coming up on the 2nd.
Let them know.
I mean, on Tuesday.
BYOR, bring your own refreshments.
Yeah, let them know that there will be refreshments as long as you serve them to.
Yeah.
But listen, it is a virtual conference, and after the conference, we're doing a virtual date night. So it's the first, the second, and then that second evening.
Jimmy, what was that name? What was that?
We're doing a virtual date night.
Nah, we're gonna have to go off after the date night.
Jimbo.
Like basis.
What kind of activities do you have planned, or is that a surprise?
Well, it's a surprise. Even though you're workshop facilitator, we still need to register for the conference.
Okay, so
Or
so
we
that
wouldn't
you
be able to. Okay.
So that you can participate in the date night. Of course, you get in the VIP.
We'll definitely register as soon as
We'll
it goes
get
live
virtual
Tuesday.
T-shirts, virtual cups, virtual paraphernalia.
Right. It's virtual. Listen, you get fed between every workshop at this particular conference.
You can break away and go get some cheese and crackers. Huh?
The benefits of virtual.
Benefits
That's
of
good
virtual.
stuff.
Well,
We
look,
love
man,
it.
we appreciate you guys again, man. Look, and
Thank
thank you guys
you,
who
guys.
tuned in, and for those of you who are going to be looking at the replay, thank you so much for joining us and supporting. And please, by all means, support Marriage Inc. Shannon and Shirley, they have a very, very powerful ministry, and we're looking forward to next month. And join them. Go ahead and register once they go live.
Mm-hmm.
And Shannon said that the registration will go live on next Tuesday.
And
On
it's
this coming
This Tuesday.
And it's
Tuesday.
coming Tuesday, and it's free.
Right.
It is free, so free of charge, but you must register
It's called
to be
Thrive.
a part of this conference. So
I also want to note that we said we would not go over, and it's been 2 hours, but it's been a wonderful 2 hours. It's been
I
an
don't know why you
eventful.
said 1 hour for
This one
this
did.
floor.
It's been an eventful 2 hours, and I think we got a lot of good stuff that
Yes.
we talked.
Yes.
thank
it was
you so
great.
much for being
Thank you
Captain
guys so
Obvious.
much.
You know, Captain Obvious just had to point it out. You know,
Captain Obvious.
right.
Reporting to duty.
I know.
Look,
Such a goody
y'all have a
two
good
shoes.
night. Man, y'all have a good one. We'll see y'all later. You so goofy.
I'm good.
Yes.
We can hear you.
Yeah, I
We know.
These are the end of the show bloopers.
Oh.
That's a blooper.
Oh, what happened?
Oh my